Alright, I am back with another video, and this is not my second time trying to record this because Windows updates decided to change my microphone settings without me knowing. No, totally not. But anyways, it is that time of year. It is the time where we build another kind of Thor-inspired build. A god of thunder, a hammer-wielding, lightning user, all that good stuff. I've made a few builds like this, and this is going to be yet another interpretation. However, I've not made one of these since patch 8 came out, so we're going to have a bit of more fun to work with. Some new elements that can change how the build works. See what I mean as we get into it. So, what is the goal of this build? Essentially, I wanted to try a new way of kind of making a frontline fighter who is able to use lightning and thunder spells to deal significant damage, as well as giving ourselves buffs and our enemies debuffs, as well as being able to take advantage of a new subclass that was added in patch 8 to make a better use of a new weapon that we can get our hands on that is going to feel very, very fun to use. I also wanted to try a slightly different style with this build, and we're actually going to be dual wielding, which I know Thor wouldn't normally do, but again, this is a Thor-inspired build. It's not exactly meant to be Thor. I've got more Thor-accurate builds in the earlier stages of the channel, if you want to check those out. But yes, this is going to be a slightly new take. I've done variations of this build before, including, the Tempest Cleric Storm Sorcerer. I've done Eldritch Knight as part of it before. There's a ton of different ways you can do this. This is just another way to do it. So, without further ado, let's get into the build. First up, we're going to be playing as a dwarf today, mainly just because I don't build enough of these guys, but also because it's actually going to give us some stuff that's going to help us out later on in the build, including with some equipment, but also with our sub-race choice. So, we're going to get the standard Warhammer proficiency right away at level 1, which is what we want. We're also going to get Dark Vision, as well as Dwarven Resilience, giving us resistance to poison damage and advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, which is nice. We're actually going to have 3 resistances by the time this build is done, so that's just a nice little bonus. And of course, I've gone with Gold Dwarf today to give us an extra bit of HP per level. This means that we're just going to be that extra little bit tanky with an extra 12 HP, which I'll like, since we're going to be taking quite a few levels in Sorcerer today, meaning that for a frontline fighter, our HP might not have been as good without it, so hey, we take those. Speaking of Sorcerer, we are going to be starting as a Sorcerer. This is to give us Constitution saving throw proficiency, as well as some useful tools that we're going to want right at the start of the game, but mainly for the Constitution saving throw proficiency. However, those useful tools that we want to get do include our cantrips, and of course, one of the biggest motivations for making this build was the addition of Booming Blade, which I know I use a lot, but Booming Blade is literally hitting with our hammer by imbuing it with the power of thunder. If that's not the most Thor thing on the planet, I don't know what to tell you. Booming Blade is just going to be your absolute bread and butter for this build. It's always going to be your first attack in a turn, and we'll actually be able to supercharge our attacks with thunder damage twice per turn, using both our main attack and our extra attack, so it's going to be pretty fun. Keep an eye out for this one. But Booming Blade is going to be a staple of the build. Make sure you grab it. I've also gone for Shocking Grasp to give us a lightning-based cantrip so that we have the powers of thunder and lightning. You can also use this to disengage from an enemy safely, since the enemy will not be able to take reactions, and the spell will have advantage on creatures with metal armor, so it could always be a little bit of guaranteed damage. Mage Hand is just here for the utility, always nice. And finally, I've decided to throw Ray of Frost in. I'm going to break the mold a little bit here by actually including a couple of cold spells here and there, because cold does fit the theme of the storm, so I wanted to include it, but mainly this is just here as a ranged option. We're not going to be taking too many ice-based options, but hey, it's nice to have a bit of variety every now and again. For our spells, it's entirely up to you. I originally had Thunderwave here, but I'm actually going to recommend you replace it with Chromatic Orb instead. It's another thunder damage attack that can also be changed to lightning and work at range, so it does both for us, and it does a little bit of extra thunder damage, because really, if we're going to be doing close range thunder damage, well, Thunderwave is nice. We're mostly going to be using Booming Blade for that, so not really that useful to have, and besides, we'll have Thunderwave automatically added to our spell list later anyway, so it's not really a big deal. But I am going to grab Witch Bolt as our first kind of concentration spell, because I really like the idea of us thrusting our hammer forward, summoning a bolt of lightning that chain links us to an enemy that persistently damages them. I don't know, it just feels like a very MCU Thor thing to do, I guess. But no, I quite like the idea of Witch Bolt in this build just from a thematic standpoint, and for an early game concentration spell, it is pretty decent actually, so I don't know, I kind of like it. For our subclass, we're going for the obvious, Storm Sorcery. Been a while since I built one of these, but it's going to give us Tempestuous Magic right at level 1, giving us Thor's ability to fly, in quotations, right off from the start. Whenever we cast a level 1 spell or higher, we can fly as a bonus action without receiving opportunity attacks, which is really nice for being able to do some positioning if we need to. Our background doesn't matter. Pick your favourite. I just went with Soldier because, you know, we're a battler, we're a fighter, we're that type of dude. We're just good on the battlefield. Soldier helps with that. But honestly, any background, pick your favorite. Now, finally, for the ability scores. Strength is at 8 because we don't need it. Dexterity is at 14 because that's the highest we need to go to get the maximum AC out of medium armor because we're wearing medium armor today. Constitution is at 16 because this plus our Gold Dwarf Heritage is going to give us a decent chunk of HP, despite the fact that we're going to be taking quite a few levels in Sorcerer. Intelligence is at 8 because unfortunately we just don't need it. I'll make an intelligence build soon. Promise. Wisdom is at 12 just to make those saving throws not so abysmal, and Charisma is at 16 because it's going to be both our main spellcasting and main attacking modifier. Moving on to our skill proficiencies, we already get Athletics and Intimidation from our background, but again, choose your favourite there. And finally, we can take Persuasion and Insight as our 2 skills from Sorcerer. So because we're going to be a high Charisma character, having 2 Charisma skills feels pretty nice on this build, and Insight, again, helps when you're the face of the party, and it melds nicely with our middling Wisdom. So yeah. That is level 1. At level 2, we're actually going to immediately take our first multi-class dip. And you know, when patch 8 came out, I thought I was going to be doing this a lot more. I feel like I'm kind of restrained on this, but yes, we're going to take a dip into Warlock, and we're going to go with the Hexblade. Now, this is for a good reason, because being able to bind a hexed weapon right away at level 1 means that we don't actually have to go to level 5 of Warlock with this build to be able to get the full benefits of Pact of the Blade in order to make what I'm trying to make work. Because, spoiler alert, we're using the Chargebound Warhammer today, and it does work with Hexblade's Bind Hex weapon. So by taking a 1-level dip of this, we get so many things. Let's talk about it. First up, 2 cantrips. Now, I'm not going to be taking Eldritch Blast because I do not want this to be an Eldritch Blast build. That's just not what this is about. So we'll take Friends and just something, I guess. It doesn't really matter what we take here. We're not really going to be using it too much. You could take Eldritch Blast if you want to, but I personally don't want to, so we'll just grab something that has no real consequence. And from the Hexblade, we're going to get so many different things. First up, 2 new spells get added to our spell list, Shield and Wrathful Smite. We are going to take Shield, but we're also going to grab Armour of Agathys instead of Wrathful Smite. Armour of Agathys is going to allow us to give ourselves a cold kind of barrier. That is going to give us extra temporary HP and deal 5 cold damage to any creature that hits us with a melee attack. That will be an extra 5 for the level of spell slot used. So later on, we can actually use this to become quite tanky, which is really going to be good for us, and Shield is always amazing to have. Thank you, Hexblade. Let's talk about the actual subclass features. First up is Bind Hexed Weapon. This will allow us to bind our main hand weapon. Its damage becomes magical, you cannot drop or throw it, and you become proficient with it if you weren't already. When you attack with this weapon, there is a chance that the Hexblade's curse will be applied to the target. More on that in a minute. You can only have 1 packed weapon at any time, and it uses your Charisma modifier. So now we can safely level Charisma to have it affect both our weapon attacks and our spellcasting. So, with Bind Hex Weapon, this activates any ability of a piece of equipment that requires it to be bound by a Warlock or an Eldritch Knight, so the Chargebound Warhammer is going to get a pretty decent buff from this, more in the equipment section later. Let's talk about Hexblade's Curse. You have a chance to trigger it from attacking with your Hexed weapon, or you can trigger it manually as a bonus action. It allows you to curse a target. Damage roll against the target, gain a bonus equal to your proficiency bonus, and the number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking the target is reduced by 1, and if the target dies, you regain hit points equal to your Charisma modifier, in this case 3 because we haven't leveled it up yet. Overall, we're mainly here for Bind Hexed Weapon to activate the Chargebound Warhammer and give us that Charisma buff, to allow everything we do to use Charisma, so overall, I just like it, but the Hexblade's Curse is a nice bonus on top, but I think of it more as like a kind of declaration of combat, like you are my opponent, and as such your warrior spirit comes out or something. I don't know, I'm bullshitting. It's Hexblade Curse, you know it's good. And finally, Hex Warrior gives you access to proficiency with medium armor, shields, and martial weapons, and obviously gives you the Bind Hexed Weapon feature. But really, that's all we needed was Bind Hexed Weapon. But the extra stuff we get, like the cantrips and the spells and all that, is a pretty nice bonus, so we take those. We don't need to go to Warlock level 2, however, we are going to immediately jump into our 3rd multi-class of the build. Yes, I know. Stay with me here. Paladin. I can't remember if I've used Paladin with a Thor build in the past, but we're doing it now. Paladin is going to give us a lot of stuff. Namely, you'll get all the weapon and armor proficiencies that we already have, so that's not really a big deal, but if you're worried about needing to start as Paladin, for those, you don't have to. However, we do get to choose our subclass, and honestly, it's a pick your favourite situation. None of these 100% fit Thor, in my opinion, although maybe Oath of the Crown, if you think if he's like subservient to Odin or something like that. Maybe, but really it doesn't matter too much. My personal favourite for this build though, again, leaning away from the Thor inspiration a little bit, kind of leaning more into just the idea of being a warrior of the elements, Oath of the Ancients actually feels pretty appropriate here. Not only is it going to help us out by giving us an extra way to heal through Healing Radiance, which is actually very nice, it heals a total of 26 HP by the time this build is done, very much like it, as well as Lay on Hands giving us an extra healing option that's by default. You're going to have a lot of self-healing, which is great, especially when Healing Radiance activates as a bonus action. So, I don't know, I like Oath of the Ancients here, specifically because it kind of fits the whole nature, storm, weather, fighter vibe, I guess. So that would be my personal choice, and I don't build with Ancients nearly often enough, so I feel like it's a fun choice here. Also, the spell list does actually work with this build, so it's nice to pick it up. At Paladin level 2, we're of course going to get Divine Smite. I don't really intend on using Divine Smite with this build, I'm here for some other stuff. Now, as for our fighting style, unfortunately this is a bit of a caveat. I do plan to dual wield on this build, just to shake things up a bit, but it's not actually necessary to do. Unfortunately though, we don't gain access to 2-weapon fighting through Paladin, so our offhand attacks will be a little bit different, but by the time this build is done, you're actually going to see that doesn't really matter too much. However, you are free to pick whatever fighting style you like if you decide you don't want to dual wield, great weapon fighting or defense, depending on whether or not you want to go with a shield. Both can be really good. 2-weapon fighting, or great weapon fighting I should say, can also be good. Dueling can also be good if you want to go with a shield. Honestly, anything you like here, doesn't really matter, but for this playstyle, we only really benefit from defense, so that's what I'm going to go with. Now, for our prepared spells, we get something very, very important. Thunderous Smite. Remember when I talked about using our hammer to hit with the power of thunder? Well, this is the kind of next level up from that. Unfortunately, we can't upcast this spell in any way, so we're always only going to be doing the 2d6 thunder damage, but we could push our target away and potentially knock them prone as well, and thanks to the Chargebound Warhammer's buff, we're mixing lightning and thunder into one massive attack. And the best part is, you can use this on your second attack of a turn, as long as you still have a bonus action available to you. So, you can Booming Blade on your first attack, then Thunderous Smite on your second attack, which feels extremely satisfying to do. So Thunderous Smite is a staple of the build. For the rest of your spells, it's entirely up to you. Shield of Faith for a bit of extra AC, Command because it's a generally useful spell, Compelled Duel because it fits the warrior vibe, and finally, I would say either Bless or Heroism, entirely up to you. I kind of like Heroism more, so I might go with that. At level 3 of Paladin, we're going to get some of our subclass features. Namely, we get to Speak with Animals, which is just a fun roleplay thing anyway, especially since we're going to have such high charisma, and Ensnaring Strike, which I'm going to be honest, we're probably not using too much. We're also going to get Turn the Faithless and Nature's Wrath, which allows you to restrain an enemy that cannot move, etc, etc. The usual restrained things apply here, like the advantage, so that's always nice. Turn the Faithless allows you to turn nearby Fae and Fiends, and they are forced to flee and cannot come close to you. Your prowess as a warrior of thunder and lightning strikes fear into those of evil hearts around you, or something like that. I don't know, it's just extra features that, I'll be honest, we're probably not going to use. We're just going to be mainly spending our channel Earth Charge on Healing Radiance. And you do get to take an extra spell at this level, you can grab Bless. At Paladin level 4, you're going to get some more Lay on Hands and spell slots, which is always nice to have. You're going to get to prepare another spell, which can be pretty much anything you want. If you want a little bit of extra healing, Cure Wounds in your back pocket, never going to be a bad thing. And then finally, we're going to use an ability score improvement to bump up our charisma to 18. And finally, at Paladin level 5, we're going to gain access to our extra attack. Yes, it's a couple of levels late than normal, but hey, we've still been a pretty damn powerful character up until this point, so honestly, it's not too much of a bad thing. But anyways, moving on, we also gain access to level 2 spells. Namely, we're going to gain access to Misty Step and Moonbeam. Not going to be using Moonbeam too much on this one, but Misty Step feels very, very nice to have, and in my opinion, does fit the kind of Storm Warrior vibe. We're also going to gain access to being able to prepare these spells as well. I'm starting to lose my voice a bit here. Oh no. But we can grab Aid to give us and the rest of the party a bit of extra tankiness, but if you have a cleric in the party, save that one for them. And then the rest, it's kind of up to you. We kind of have everything that I want from Paladin spell-wise, so really, just pick your favourite, I guess. We don't need to go to level 6 of Paladin in this build, nor do I really want to, and we don't need any more Warlocks, so we're just going to go back to Sorcerer and stay there. For our spell that we get to choose from Sorcerer, again, it's really up to you, although I do like the idea of having something along the lines of maybe False Life for extra temporary HP. Could stack well with Armour of Agathis, because it doesn't matter where the temp HP comes from, if I remember correctly. Let me know if I'm wrong about that. Ice Knife, if you don't mind taking some cold damage stuff. But really, again, we kind of have all the stuff that I like, although if we are going to be floating around and potentially needing to jump down from buildings onto people, Featherfall might be nice to have in your back pocket. But of course, we now also get Meta Magic. Really, you can pick your favourites out of these two. I don't think it matters too much what you take here. We can go for Distant Spell, Extended Spell, or Twin Spell here. Twinned is usually pretty good, and I like Extended Spell because we do have a lot of like effects that buff us over time, so extending those effects could be good. At Sorcerer level 3, you're going to gain access to level 2 spells, and of course we're going to take Shatter, why wouldn't we, for a ranged AoE Thunder attack. We also do get to grab Quicken Spell at this level, because let's be honest, this is one of the better spells if you're trying to play a Spellblade type character, or one of the better meta magic options. It's being able to attack with your action, and then being able to cast a spell with your bonus action. Feels pretty good. There's nothing quite like in this build, going Booming Blade, regular Hammer Smack, and then Lightning Bolt as a bonus action. Very fun. At level 4, we do get to choose another cantrip, but again, we kind of have everything that I want, so really, pick your favourite, I guess. Moving on though, we do get to choose another level 2 spell, and again, this is kind of gonna be another pick your favourite situation, although if you're playing as a dwarf in this case, I actually might recommend picking up Enlarge Reduce. If you don't want to spend your concentration on something else, then being able to make yourself nice and big and imposing could make you feel a bit closer to the real Thor, instead of just being, you know, slightly smaller. We also do get to choose another feat at this point, and because this is quite late in the game and the dual-wielding weapon I want you to use isn't actually available until Act 3, then taking dual-wielder this late actually isn't too bad. It's going to give us an extra bonus to our armor class as well as allow us to dual-wield our warhammers, which is what I want to do. And at Sorcerer level 5, we're going to gain access to level 3 spells, and I mean, come on. We're taking Lightning Bolt. Need I say more? At Sorcerer level 6, we're going to get access to a ton of things. We're going to get enough sorcery points, so now that we have 6, which is good. We're also going to gain resistance to lightning and thunder damage, as well as every time we cast a spell of level 1 or higher that deals lightning or thunder damage, this can include Bloody Thunderous Smite, which is awesome, we cause a small, localized storm. All enemies within 6 meters will take lightning or thunder damage depending on the damage type of the spell cast. So we just get extra thunder damage on our Thunderous Smites, which is really fun. We're also going to gain access to Cool Lightning, Sleet Storm, Gust of Wind, Cradle Destroy Water, and Thunder Wave, just as extra spells, because why not? And then finally, we get to choose one more level 3 spell. I mean, we kind of have everything that I could ever want on this build, so let's just have a bit of fun with haste, shall we? And that is the build. Overall, what you're going to get out of this is a pretty solid frontline fighter with a lot of elemental damage options. On its own, it's pretty basic, though. You're going to be Booming Blading your first attack, then Thunderous Smiting your second attack, and overall it's just going to give you a ton of extra damage on each of your turns. Thanks to Bind Hexed Weapon, we're going to have a pretty significant damage buff to our main hand weapon, which again is going to be our charge-bound Warhammer, but we don't want to slouch on our other weapon either, as you'll see a bit later. But yeah, for now, it's pretty... I like this build quite a bit, but otherwise, let's get into the equipment. So, first of all, we have access to our other offhand weapon, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is the charge-bound Warhammer. Not the charge-bound Warhammer, the Dwarven Thrower. You can, this weapon will return to you when thrown, and a dwarf throwing this Warhammer will deal an additional 1d8 bludgeoning damage. If the target is large, huge, or gargantuan, the strike will deal an additional 2 to 16 bludgeoning damage, and it is a +2 weapon. But you may be thinking, this doesn't work because we don't have a lot of strength. And you're kind of right. To be honest, you might need to use a piece of equipment or the elixirs of Hill Giant Strength to be able to make this a bit more viable, which is why I think the shield route could be a bit better, but otherwise, I just done that so many times already, so I wanted to prove to you guys that actually dual wielding could be pretty fun, because you can have your thunder-infused charge-bound Warhammer in one hand, and then your Dwarven Thrower in the other that you can toss around to kind of still give that Thor vibe, but honestly, it might not work for everybody. You might just want to slap a shield in your offhand and take a different feat, which, to be honest, more power to you. But I just wanted to introduce the idea of, hey, you could try dual wielding. Might be a bit gimmicky, but if you got the right items, you can make it work. But honestly, it's not essential to the build. I didn't use it too much in my testing, but if you're Thor and you're not throwing your hammer, what are you doing? But again, we're loosely inspired here. But yes, our main weapon of choice is the charge-bound Warhammer. While it is bound to your hexed weapon, you're going to gain an extra +1, leading to a total of +2, and the weapon is going to deal an additional 1d6 lightning damage, which means it's going to be quite strong. 1d6 lightning damage plus the potential 2d8 thunder damage from Booming Blade, plus the additional 2d6 thunder damage from Thunderous Smite. You're going to be dealing a lot of damage each turn without even needing to pop out the good old Divine Smite. But of course, yeah, obviously for the offhand, feel free to use whatever you like. Do be warned though, that if you do the throwing strategy here, you're going to have, when you throw the weapon and it comes back to you, it will return to your main hand, so your weapons will get swapped around, so just be aware of that. But anyways, moving on to the helmet choice, we've got the Helmet of Arcane Acuity. We're going to be doing a lot of weapon attacks, and we can use this instead of the Hat of the Storm Scion, so we're not entirely reliant on thunder damage, even though we're going to be doing that all the time anyway. You never know. The Helmet of Arcane Acuity is just slightly more reliable, making it so that whenever we deal damage with a weapon attack, Arcane Acuity will give us a +1 bonus to our spell attack rolls and spell difficulty class for each remaining turn, basically just meaning that after we get a few attacks in, nobody's going to be able to resist our damaging spells, which is really, really nice. For our cloak, we're going to gain access to the Thunderskin Cloak. When a creature that is dealing with reverberation deals damage to the wearer, the creature will need to make a con save or become dazed. So basically what this means is that if you have the reverberation condition inflicted on an opponent, which does all these things you see on screen here, you can also potentially inflict daze to them if they attack you, which means they'll have disadvantage on wisdom saves, can't take reactions, and lose their dexterity bonus from their armor class, which is very, very nice, makes us a bit more offensive. For our chest piece, we have the Jolty Vest. We take 1 less slashing damage, yippee, but also whenever the wearer takes damage while having lightning charges, they attack him a succeeded dex save or become shocked, which is the same thing that Shocking Grasp does, making it so they cannot take reactions and will have disadvantage on ability checks and saving throws using dex, which is just a nice little extra bonus that fits the build. Moving on to the Gloves of Belligerent Skies, this is how we're dealing out reverberation. Whenever we deal thunder, lightning, or radiant damage, of which we can do all 3, sometimes in a single attack, you will be able to inflict reverberation upon the target, which, as I said, does a bunch of interesting things that you can read about here, but long story short, it's a stacking debuff that'll reduce their physical saving throws and potentially deal a bit of extra thunder damage when they have enough stacks. Next up, for our boots, we have the Speedy Light Feat. Now, if you want to take a few setup turns to dash as an action, you can. This will allow you to gain 3 lightning charges. However, I do just remember something I meant to do with this build. If you also wanted to take Expeditious Retreat on this build to dash as a bonus action, this would still work. But basically, this could be your main way of building up lightning charges, although you could swap to the Water Sparklers instead to gain lightning charges whenever you're standing in electrified water. That's entirely up to you once you get Create or Destroy Water at later levels, but otherwise, if you ever want to take a turn just to quickly dash and basically power up your lightning form, which feels kind of cool, you'll be able to gain a bit of a bonus to your damage and attack rolls, basically getting a +1 and a little bit of lightning damage, and if you accumulate enough, you'll be able to do an additional lightning damage in a burst and lose all of your stacks. To be honest, you probably only need to dash once, and then use those attacks for the next couple of turns to be able to deal extra lightning damage, but otherwise, it's entirely up to you. It's just a nice, fun buff. We also have access to the Spine Shudder Amulet. Whenever we make a ranged spell attack, we can inflict 2 turns of reverberation on a target, so it's just another way of dealing reverberation. I've got the Ring of Flinging to give us a bit of extra throw damage if you do decide to go down the Dwarven Thrower route. If not, feel free to replace this with something else. And finally, the Ring of Spiteful Thunder, allowing us to be a bit more offensive. It's can't speak. It's basically the same as the Thunderskin Cloak, except it's when we deal thunder damage rather than when we get attacked. For some reason, the tooltips are not popping up. This is annoying. There we go. So yeah, basically allowing someone to potentially become dazed if we hit them with thunder damage while they have reverberation. So basically, you just keep stacking on reverberation, and you just keep winning. Pretty fun. But yeah, overall, that is the build. Sorry if this video seemed a bit quicker today. My voice, as you can tell, is probably dying a little bit, so I just kind of wanted to record this one for you all. And yeah, obviously this build has a lot of different routes you can take. The main thing here was the leveling scheme, just to show off the potential of the combat there, but there is potential for dual-wielding shenanigans if you want to, but honestly, hammer and shield, or just a single hammer, maybe throwing on Great Weapon Master, honestly would work just as well. So really, pick your poison. It's entirely up to you. I just like to play around with different build concepts and just do things slightly differently, but really, now that I think about it, that Great Weapon Master sounds pretty damn good. Up to you. But yes, that is the build, and overall, I think you guys can have a lot of fun with it. Now, as for the fashion, just quickly, breastplate +2 and the chainmail boots, both from the Fear Tailor's Camp Clothing mod, coloured in the Elton dye from the Faerun Colours mod, both of which are available on the mod manager, so they're available on consoles as well as PC. And yeah, that's going to be it for today. Not really much else to say. Pretty standard build, all things considered. I mean, come on, it's a Hexblade, Warlocks, Paladin, Sorcerer. It's a Hexblade-a-din, Sorcerer-din thing. Like, it's a pretty standard power build, just done with a bit of a lightning and thunder theme that gives it a bit of a different vibe. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed this one, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.